All right, welcome to Drupal Platforms, a how-to guide. Before we get started, I want to work out some terminology. You know, Drupal platforms mean a lot of things to a lot of people, right? Today we're going to use it in the meaning of a web or omni-channel platform, right? So like a site of sites or a platform that a bunch of websites are built on. Typically, I'm going to talk about this in like a single Drupal code base sort of way. Many people might know that as like a multi-site. But it could also be, you know, a site of services or a site that's powering, you know, an application. Today's topic is going to be not industry specific. I just came off of a project working in big pharma for the last 3+ years. So a lot of my points of reference are going to be in that. But this talk could apply to educational institutions, government, nonprofit, really, you know, big business, really any industry you want to apply it to. So a little bit of a disclaimer here. 45 minutes, not a ton of time to get really exhaustive into a full how-to guide on how to build your Drupal platform. If you're disappointed, I'm sorry, but I will do my best. We're going to cover a lot of key strategies and just some things to think about when you're like starting off on the Drupal platform journey. Or, I mean, if you're in the middle of a Drupal platform journey, maybe some insights into how you can shift it, make it better. Feel free to reach out. My contact information will be at the end of the deck. Love to talk about Drupal platforms, love to talk about common problems, love to talk about building solutions. So feel free to reach out. I'm also realizing that I should probably add to my disclaimer here, like, this talk's not going to talk a lot about AI. So like, if you're looking for AI, you're kind of in the wrong place. Oh, no. Sorry, I've already lost the crowd. All right, well, here we go. All right, so today's talk is broken down into 3 main sections: planning, building, and supporting your Drupal-based platform. We're going to focus heavily on that first, second one here, but the first big bucket, planning. I feel like that's the most important of the buckets here. Some may argue, well, you know, you can plan all day, but if you don't actually build it, it doesn't matter. But you should plan for success is the way I like to focus on that. We're not going to go into a lot of detail about how we're going to build Drupal, right? So that might be the second disappointment here, is like, we're not going to get into like, well, this is how you configure this module, and this is the module you should use. Because as we all know in this room, when you have a feature you're trying to build in Drupal, there are a lot of ways you can do that. And if I went through all of those ways here, first of all, we'd probably blow through that 45 minutes. And by the end of it, we probably wouldn't agree on like, this is the best way to do it. So we're not getting into a lot of Drupal building here. And then we're going to end with support and how you can support your platform for the longevity of your platform, right? We're all building these platforms with the idea that people are going to use them. People are going to use them well into the future. In order to do that, we need to be able to support them. All right, so let's get into some of the boring stuff. A little bit about me. My name is John Picozzi. I'm a solution architect at EPAM. I work on EPAM's Drupal Acquia team. I'm an organizer of the Drupal Providence meetup, co-organizer of the New England Drupal Camp, a co-host on Talking Drupal, my podcast, and I've had the pleasure of building Drupal solutions for clients like Marriott International, Blue Cross Blue Shield, and most recently Novartis. So a little bit of background here. Why are we talking about this? Well, as I said earlier, last 3 years, I've been working in big pharma on a web platform, omni-channel web platform. Basically, a Drupal-based platform to house 50 to 80 brand websites, right? Before that, I worked in e-commerce, working on a similar type platform to support e-commerce sites that were multilingual, multinational. So a lot of experience building kind of big web platforms. And I've kind of talked about this topic and governance of these platforms in a couple of different spots. Florida Drupal Camp 3 or 4 years ago, maybe it was. DrupalCon, and then I've also written about it for opensource.com and my personal blog. So just out of curiosity, I'm kind of like, hey, Drupal platforms, yay! But like, who here is currently working on a Drupal platform, either as a content editor, site builder, or as a developer building? Okay, 2, 3, 4, 5 hands are going up. 6 people. That's awesome. Hopefully you find this useful. There'll be plenty of time for question and answers at the end, so feel free to hit me with those later. All right, let's get into planning. Let's talk about it, right? It is, as I said at the beginning, very important. The Lego picture here speaks to planning a little bit. I think I was talking to Mike last night at dinner. When you start building with Legos, right, you open the box, you take out the directions, and you typically notice like, hey, Lego, you've put blocks into bags for me. Thank you. You don't open all the bags and dump them out on the table and go like, all right, what do I do? Like, what do I build now? You read the directions, start with bag 1, so on and so forth, right? Some people go as far as to like match the colors and color code everything. I don't tend to get that crazy, but like planning is super important. You definitely need to plan if you're going to build a successful Drupal-based web platform. So the first thing that I typically like to talk about here is governance. Governance is super important for your web platform. I would even go as far to say is like it's crucial, right? A central governance model is like key to your platform's existence. I've worked on projects with really good governance models, and I've worked on, or I've inherited projects, I should say, with governance models that have not been really that great. Broken governance models are not always easy to repair, but you can do it. So a good governance strategy, in my opinion, starts with organizational buy-in, right? So like, if you're like, hey, we need a Drupal platform, and nobody in your organization is like, yes, we do, you're right, let's do it, or I don't really want to use that, then like, you're really going to have a hard time having people adopt that platform, having people care about that platform, and really see the value in it. So that first block there, organizational buy-in, and building a value proposition, right? You need people to want to use your platform in order for your platform to grow, in order for your platform to mature. In some organizations, getting that buy-in can be hard. Units, groups within your organization feel that they'll lose control, they'll lose flexibility. If I go to your platform, like, I'm not going to be able to do whatever I want whenever I want, right? You have to have the ability to, within your value proposition, kind of educate them as to why it's going to be a little bit better for them. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. I mean, as we all know, right, Drupal does flexibility really well. You can build super flexible things with Drupal, right? But most people within an organization don't really understand that. They just think when they hear governance, like, you're going to give me a bunch of rules that I have to follow, and I'm probably not going to like that. So to that I say, ensure your value proposition is strong, right? Show them the value that you're going to bring to them, either with a demo or with a couple of key areas. One that I like to bring up and brings us to the middle image there is like, hey, if we unite and use a Drupal-based platform for our organization, we're going to better spend our budgets and use our resources better. So like, what does that look like? Well, we're going to better spend our budget. Like, we're going to build the platform. It's going to cost a lot of money to do that potentially. But once you're on a platform, you have the ability to sell the value proposition of joint funding, right? Hey, two groups, two units within our organization need a feature. You guys can work together, joint fund that feature, and it's going to cost each of you half of what it would have cost you if you did it yourself, right? You also have the ability to reduce resources, right? If you both have web teams that are both working on your stuff, well, now you can have one web team that's working on more stuff, more features, right? And this one gets me in trouble. I think I was talking to somebody earlier about this, but you'll have less developers developing individual things, right? And developers always get anxious when I say that. They get worried, like, what do you mean? Like, you're going to put me out of a job with this Drupal platform idea? Like, no. The idea is that you're not spending time building individual sites, working in silos. You're working together, and you're building features for the platform to keep the platform running, and you're maintaining the platform. There's plenty of development work. It's just that we're better spending our time, money, and resources, right?
Get more done.
Get more done. That's right. So I like to remind people, like governance is a set of rules and processes, right? Like, hey, we're gonna develop this governance that everybody has to agree to and work by. But that doesn't mean that they can't shift to get better. They can't change. I think somebody earlier this morning was talking about a 6-week time frame of like how you could change your governance in 6 weeks, or how you could change your kind of workflow in 6 weeks, right? And I say, like, hey, listen, if something's not working, you have a governance model that doesn't work for what you're trying to do, you can change that. And that last point there is, like, it's important to let the people know that are using your platform that's going to happen, right? You have to build relationships with your users. Those relationships are key to the success of your platform and getting people to be comfortable and believe in what you're building. Adds to that value proposition. Again, if the governance isn't working for people, assure them that it can change. I like to actually take an open source mentality to like governance. Now, like, it's not as the governance, the rules are there, the processes are there, but I like to take the philosophy of like, hey, listen, if a process isn't working, we can change, we can work to adapt it, we can work to change it. Same thing with, and we'll talk about this a little bit later too, but adding features to the platform. You know, if you have 50 sites on your platform, 100 sites on your platform, they all have different needs. Well, if you know 3 or 4 groups need the same feature, hey, let's put a feature request in. Let's work together on that, right? Build those relationships. You know, consider your users as partners as opposed to just clients or customers. Listen to what they say. And always remember, like, a lot of times I feel like people come in and say, oh, well, it's a problem with the technology. And typically it's not a problem with the technology, right? Typically it's a problem with process, or it's just people don't really understand it. Building those relationships, building the understanding around what your platform is doing will help with that. So business objectives. I think everybody's got business objectives, right? Every industry has, you know, a kind of set of business objectives. But I like to make sure that when we're in this planning phase, we're thinking of the business objectives, right? And it seems obvious, like, well, yeah, like the reason we're building this thing is because we have X, Y, and Z problem. But the goal here is to ensure that the team building the platform understands the business objectives and they're building the solutions for the right problem. Having the right people in the room is critical as well, right? You know, sometimes when you're talking about business objectives, you know, developers can get to solutioning right? Oh, well, we can do this, and we can implement this code or that code, and they kind of glaze over maybe the root cause of the problem. Bringing your users into those conversations is important too. Hey, we heard that you have this problem. Please walk us through how you use it, what the problem really is. That's such valuable insight into like defining those business objectives a little bit more than just saying like, oh, well, we have a problem with X or Y, right? It's like, oh, I see now what the problem is. I've seen you do it in your environment. That can also be helpful in translating that into development, into a feature or into a feature on your platform. Shameless self-promotion here. Like as a solution architect, that is my main goal when working with clients, is to understand their business objectives and then dig deeper into why is this happening and building features for platforms that will help support those. A lot of times, again, having the right people in the room is important, because like sometimes developers just want to do what they do best, which is develop, and like trying to like understand the problem and understand the business objectives doesn't really work for them. I'm wondering, in my experience, I've heard a couple of different business objectives. One's always really the same. It's like faster time to market, right? Everybody wants faster time to market. Again, we talked about more efficient spend of budget. That's another business objective. I'm wondering if anybody else has other like business objectives that they're hearing a lot when talking about their Drupal platform. Anything come to mind?
Distribution, like the question's a little vague.
A little vague. Okay, I can put a finer point on it. What type of business objectives is your Drupal platform trying to solve? Benji.
Be secure. We got a lot of DOS attacks.
All right, yeah, you want a secure platform, right? Drupal does that pretty well out of the box. There are other things that you need there, but like, there are a lot of objectives out there where people, one I hear all the time is personalization, right? Everybody's like, hey, I want to do personalization. Now, yes, there are plenty of services and modules you can throw at personalization, but if you don't have a personalization strategy, your personalization efforts are probably going to be a little bit, not as effective as you think they're going to be. Well, defining those business directives, sorry, go ahead.
Self-service is one of the
self-service. So
key thing for our platform.
So we're going to talk about that when we get into when I get into like building Drupal. We're going to talk about kind of hosting architecture, the aspects of Drupal, and one of them is that making sure that like how do you launch a site, how do you update sites.
So your concern it would be recruitment, and it's not only for student recruitment, it's also for research recruitment.
Right. So like what? That's a great example of a business objective, right? We want to do better in recruitment. Okay, well you'd have to dig into that quite a bit to understand what the technical aspects, how the web platform can help you better achieve that, right? And there are a number of ways that one could come to light on a web platform. Personalization could be one of them, but again, you need that personalization strategy. This is all a way to say that business objectives are super important to how you guide building the features on your platform. And more importantly, guiding how users use the platform, right? Like you can have all these great ideas, and if they're implemented poorly within your platform, nobody's going to want to use it. So the next one, who here is using a design system? Couple people. I gotta. Listen, design systems are, if you don't have a Drupal platform, you're starting off on like, this is your first foray, you're like, what is this guy talking about? You're just getting into this. A design system is a great foundation for a Drupal platform. It is like, it's one of those perfect starting points where it kind of brings its own governance with it. The project I just came off of, we started with a design system, and as an architect and from a development side, it was great to be able to say, like, people come in and be like, oh, well, we needed to do this, and be like, oh, well, the design system doesn't really support that yet, but let's go talk to the UX team and see if they can add it, and when they add it, then we'll bring it into the platform and you'll be able to do it. And they were like, oh, okay, cool. So it's kind of like a little built-in starter governance pack structure there that you can get with a design system. If you don't have a design system in place, you can implement one after the fact for your platform. It's something to think about for sure. I like design systems because I feel like they provide a lot of flexibility with, especially within Drupal and platforms. Right now, Layout Builder, you can do a lot with integrating Layout Builder into with a design system and using that as a building tool for content editors. Common component libraries are also a great benefit. And overall, the design system is just a great language for you to use with technical, non-technical, and design users to bring everybody together, make sure they're talking, using the same terms, same language, understanding each other. Actually reminds me, so like Layout Builder has a bunch of great features that lend themselves to bringing your design system into Drupal. Rod had a great talk this morning about different tools you can use with Layout Builder. So if you didn't see that, I recommend checking that out. So one of the last things here in the planning phase that I like to think about is third-party integrations. And we all got them, right? Like, I know that when you're using Drupal, you're not just using Drupal, right? You're integrating with CRM, you're integrating with maybe some analytics, you're bringing in data from other sources, maybe to display on your website. So look across your brands, look across your clients, your groups, whatever that internal unit is that you call your customers, clients. Ask them, hey, what third-party integrations are we using? Oh, well, we use this one or that one. And if they're differing, right, ask them why. One to think about is, like, if you have one group within your organization using MailChimp and you have another group within your organization using Constant Contact. Well, okay, why are you guys using two different things? There may be some insight there as to why they're doing it. Oh, well, this one has this feature and that one has that feature. But if you can get alignment, you can streamline not only for the building of your platform, but also your organization. Once you determine how third-party integrations, you then want to look at how you're going to implement them into your platform. Some implementations are easy. It's just, hey, we're going to drop this piece of code on our page and it's just going to work. Others may be a little bit more advanced. They may require you to be more dynamic in how you implement them, right? Some of them may have values that need to be replaced per site that you're building, per endpoint that you're creating. So you want to think about those and, like, how do we do that? What's the best way to do that? The other thing to think about is, like, hey, is there a module for that? Can we integrate easily with this third-party service because it has a module? Keep in mind that will work for coupled sites. For decoupled sites, it might be a little bit harder. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. But at the end of the day, if you're just starting off on this journey, don't bite off more than you can chew, right? Start with an MVP set of components, an MVP set of integrations that hey, 3 or 4 of our sites will be able to get onto the platform with these integrations. You can always grow. You can always add more features, more integrations in future phases. All right, moving right along. All right, we're into building. So again, we're not talking deep Drupal here. We're not talking about like, different content types and things like that. But I thought this quote was interesting because even though it doesn't speak about web platforms, it kind of illustrates the link between architecture and building. You can have a well thought out architecture and plan for everything on paper, but if the platform itself is hard to use or doesn't meet the business objectives, your platform could be viewed in a negative light, right? We've all interacted with those platforms or products where we've been like, ugh, I got to use that thing. Like, it's the worst. It's so hard to use. And a lot of times it's because, the folks building it didn't necessarily think about how the user was going to use it. So again, not going to dive into the Drupal, but we are going to talk about some things to think about when building one of these wonderful platforms. Let's jump into those. So first things first, Drupal architecture. Now some of you may be like, wait a second, shouldn't that be in the planning phase? Sure, you could put it in the planning phase if you'd like to put it in there. I like to actually do it as part of like the build, because a lot of times you already know you're using Drupal. You already know that there are a couple of third-party integrations that you might have to custom code. This gets your development team kind of moving in a direction where they can start building things and you can start doing POCs or proof of concepts for some of the more complex features of your platform. And it gets them moving faster. So first, with Drupal architecture, you're going to think about content types. You're going to think about taxonomies. You're going to look at modules that you might want to integrate or use. So, here, like, again, so many modules, right? You want to make sure that you're picking ones that make the most sense to you. You want to think about your custom modules and if you're going to need those. And maybe this should be the first thing you think about, but maybe multi-site is an aspect here too, right? If you're building a platform, I tend to like a multi-site architecture, but your hosting provider might not support that, or you might need something a little bit different, right? Start thinking about those things early on, so that way you can make those right decisions. The next aspect here is headless, decoupled, coupled. We've all heard those terms. Think about if that makes sense for your platform. Also think about, is your organization ready for it? So I'll jump into a little story here. The project I just came off of, RFP literally said, headless omni-channel web platform. Like, it has to be headless. We said, okay, well, we can do that. We'll definitely build a headless omni-channel web platform for you. So we built the MVP. Front end was in React. Back end was in Drupal. And nobody really used the APIs. We were just building sites. So we got through the first phase and we built, 50 sites on the platform. Still, nobody was using the APIs. Then somebody was like, well, why is this headless? And I'm like, well, the power here is that you have access to all the information in the Drupal database because this is a headless platform. And they said, oh, it wasn't until the end of year 2, the beginning of year 3 of this platform that somebody decided, hey, we need the data from your platform to audit content. I said, well, here it is. It's all here in the APIs. They were like, this is great. We can just pull this in and do what we need to do and develop these reports and these dashboards. It's a little bit of a long-winded way of saying, like, make sure your organization is ready for a headless platform if you're going into it, okay? Like, if you can push it off for 3 years, push it off for 3 years. You can get into a space where you build API first and everything is powered by an API, but you're still coupled to Drupal. It's fine. You can do it. It'll be potentially a lot easier. So make sure your organization's ready. Composable, everybody's heard of composable, right? Composable commerce, composable content, everything's composable. Composability is great. Drupal is great at composability. But make sure you're understanding how you need to use it, right? Structured content is very important. we had a keynote at New England Drupal Camp where we were talking about structured content, and it highlighted some great points on why structured content is important. So I am a firm believer in structured content, but do I have any marketers in the room? No. Okay, well, fine. Understood. Marketers love flexibility, and flexibility can be achieved in Drupal with composability, right? But you got to just make sure you're thinking about it and thinking where structure needs to be and where flexibility needs to be. Also, in your composability, think, hey, how are we going to do this? Are we going to use paragraphs? Are we going to use layout builder? Experience builder's coming. Like, what does that look like? Plan your integrations, right? I already talked about like those third-party tools, but there are also integrations into your platform that are a little bit more close to home, like SSO. Maybe you have a CRM that you need to share data with, a data lake. Maybe you're using a DAM to bring in images and other assets. Think about how you're going to interact with those services. Make it as easy as possible for the users. I actually went to a session here, I think it was this morning, about making things better for content editors, right? Like at the end of the day, the content editor is the person that's using your platform. The site builder is the person that's using your platform. Make it easy for them to interact with these things. Last but not least, think a little bit about your hosting architecture, because that can kind of factor into what you can and can't do. You may be thinking, and this kind of goes to what you were saying earlier, right? About like, hey, we're going to need to launch sites on this thing. We're going to need to update sites on this thing. How do we do that? Is there a platform out there that makes it easier for us to do that? Should we be using Acquia Site Factory? Should we be using Pantheon upstreams? Pantheon doesn't really do multi-site, so like now you're like, oh, but if we want to do multi-site, we can't. So it factors into what you're building, right? So think about it. I'm a big fan of if there's a PaaS solution out there that will make your life easier, you should think about it. It makes a lot of sense, and it can make it more easier for your users to use. All right. So, new stuff. Drupal's got some stuff going on, right? We've got some new things coming. These are all things that we should be thinking about if we're building a Drupal-based platform. Recipes is amazing. If you have not seen them or used them, you should investigate. Basically, what they are is they add different packages of modules and configuration to your Drupal site. So the client I was just working for, right? They had a core distribution that they used to start all of their sites. Core distribution, it was great a while back, but now you can start to see where recipes comes to play, and they could have their core recipe could be very small, right? And then they could have other recipes that people could add on to their sites to add more features and functionality as need be. So you don't have to have this big, massive distribution. You can kind of say, here's our core recipe core recipe. Here are some other recipes you might want to look into adding. So recipes, super useful. That's something to think about when you're building a Drupal platform. The other thing is Drupal CMS, right? Doesn't make things easier. Right now, I'm kind of like, maybe, depends on the use case, right? I think once we see a PaaS solution for Drupal CMS, it might make things a little bit easier for folks. May even make this session kind of irrelevant. Who knows? Once Experience Builder comes out, that's going to make things way more interesting. Like I saw a demo with Mike yesterday of Experience Builder. And my opinion is Experience Builder is really gonna change things. All right, we're doing pretty good on time. Let's get into supporting. Okay, so you've planned for your platform, you've built your platform. Now it's time to support your platform. This slide. You may not realize it, but this slide took a lot of work because Batman's pants are being supported by those suspenders. And, I think, Tay says it best here. Each person should support the other. I tend to agree. All right, so let's jump into this. So, automation. You're like, well, supporting users, automation? Come on, what? Like, once you get through your MVP phase, there might have been instances in your MVP phase where you didn't really have time to look at a lot of automation, or you didn't have time to build out really complex automation scripts, right? Now you can kind of slow down a little bit and say, okay, what should we automate? Are there QA tasks that we could automate? Are there tasks that our users are doing that could be automated? Just look for efficiencies. Look for ways that you can improve and enhance the platform that you've built using intelligent automation. Jenkins is a great utility. You can add a bunch of different automation steps with Jenkins. Site creation, going back to like, hey, we got to build sites now. How do we do it? Jenkins could be a catalyst for that. Also, visual regression testing can be done with Jenkins, so that's something that could be useful. Providing your users with updates and new features. Your platform isn't. You're not going to like get through your MVP phase on your platform and just say, okay, we're done here. You're going to keep building. You're going to keep maturing. You're going to keep enhancing. Again, I like to take an open source approach here. If there are a bunch of stakeholders that say, hey, we all need this feature, all right, well, let's get together, figure out the commonalities, let's figure out how we build this feature into the platform. Plan for these updates, build a release calendar. The project I just came off of, again, we had a monthly release calendar. We got it down from, I think when we started, it was 4 weeks. We got it down to 5 weeks, and we were looking to get it down to maybe even a 2-week release schedule. But build a calendar. Share it with your users. That way they know, hey, you know what? Next month, this is coming out, and if you combine it with a roadmap, their heads are going to explode. Which leads me into my last point here. Communication, right? You have all of these users, you have all of these stakeholders, they're all using your platform. Now what? Now you have to talk to them. I'm sorry, but you do. Give them the roadmap. Give them the release calendar. Say, hey, this is what we're working on. This is when it's coming out. Release notes are super important, but make sure they're not technical. Make sure that they can read them in plain text and understand, oh, okay, I'm getting a new CK editor feature that's going to allow me to do great things. Okay, that's cool. I asked for that feature 2 months ago, and now here it is. Get them excited about your platform. Get them excited about those updates. I like to think of it as, and this might land well or not, but like I like to think of it as like an Apple keynote, right? Like you're getting them excited about the product that's coming out. Like, hey, this is what we're gonna do, and this is how it's gonna help you. So all in all, like at this point, you may be thinking that, well, hey, we're kind of shifting from like a platform mindset to a product mindset. And you know what? That's okay. It's a natural progression. Here's some helpful resources, some of the things I talked about within this talk. If you want to snap that, it's going to take you to my blog. You can scroll through. There's a video there. There's some helpful links as well. And with that, I will open it up to any questions.
I didn't get it.
Oh, was I too quick? Sorry. There you go.
Thank you.
I'll leave it up there. I'll still take questions if anybody has them.
Just a question on the recommendation on architecture, not doing it in sort of like a requirements phase. Can you just elaborate on that a little bit? I found that really interesting.
Yeah, so it depends on your organizational structure and how you typically do things. Mm-hmm. But a lot of times, like you'll want to gather all your requirements. Yeah. But the architectural elements, like, hey, we're going to do these content types and this taxonomy, and use these modules, and hey, we're going to POC these modules. Like that can actually kind of be done after
Right.
that requirements gathering, because ultimately, like, and you know, it again depends on your organization
Right.
and how you build like your project structure. You know, when we build a team, we have like a discovery phase if we
Right.
need it, and then we have developers that are coming onto that team.
Right.
And like, if they come on, if we're done with discovery and they come onto the team, there's a little bit of a setup window for them, but then they're kind of just sitting there like, what do we do? So I like to say like, hey guys, we know we need these 6 things.
Right.
Go get those ready. Go like POC any of the stuff that I'm kind of like, maybe we can do this. Go see if we can do it.
Yeah.
And that'll give them something to do to start getting moving in the right direction.
Right.
Setting up scaffolding, that sort of thing. And in that time, we can talk more in detail about, okay, well, we need a content type. Here are the fields we need on a content type,
Yeah.
and all of that stuff.
And would you say that, like, I mean, obviously you were saying that it really depends on organization, on the project. If you're using, let's say, like Scrum methodologies, you know, in your project, would this be irrespective of that, or would you say that, you know, still sticking within? I know you mentioned governance is like the first thing, right? So you want to kind of stick within.
Yeah, I mean, governance is huge, and figuring out what your agile methodologies are, you know, that's going to guide kind of how you operate, right?
Right.
So, like, if you know, hey, I got to stick to a 2-week, you know, sprint schedule, you're going to build out your timeline to match that. So yes, if that's the way your organization works, then you can do that. If you're going to like a Scrum Band type approach, then it matters a little bit less
Yeah.
because you're a little more flexible in what you can do. It's kind of like more of like a to-do list sort of mentality. But yeah, you should definitely factor that into the governance that you're building.
Got it. Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions? It's okay. I know it's late in the day. One more set of sessions, and then we can all go do stuff. No? Party. There you go. I like it. All right. Well, thank you very much.